Hey guys, what's going on? Shaw here, and quick little story, not story, but just what's been going on the last couple days. I had a plan to get a couple of videos out over the weekend, including a DOS commentary as well as a couple of boss guides. But a bunch of my files got corrupted and weren't able to be exported. And then once I finally was able to figure out the corrupted issues and trying to clip out different files, my exporter failed, and then my Adobe Premiere is now crashed. So I'm going through a whole reinstall process and trying to get everything back under wraps. So apologies on that. So instead of doing a commentary on DOS, I know a lot of you guys have really been asking for it. I wanted to do something not as good, but probably similar to talking about DOS, because I think the biggest thing that a lot of you guys are wondering is what route you should run. There's tons of different ways to go through routes. Some people, woe skip off to Arden right away. Some people woe skip right to Hakar. Some people just do and then they pull it around the ring. Some people just do and kind of just beeline it for a certain boss. Some people just go right up to Arden without woe skipping. And right now I think there's a lot of questions about what's best. And honestly, I couldn't give you a good answer because I haven't woe skipped to Hakar, but I typically go to Hakar first. But there have also been times that I go to Ardenweld. But I'm going to go over my route in this video, as well as provide hopefully some clips on certain points that you want to and point out some certain points that you might want to that you might need to know about in the route. So let's jump over to the other side and let's quickly talk about this or my route in specifically. So what I'm going to do is I'll rename this. I'll upload it. It'll be in the description below. So if you want this route, go check it out. But this is what I timed the 22 DOS with, and I've had very successful 23 runs with as well. The 22 is going to be my commentary because it was one of the cleaner runs, but unfortunately all the files got corrupted. So we're going to start off by pulling the very first pack here. You're going to want to use most of your defensives here, except Incarnation. You want to hold Incarnation for the second pull, and you can typically grab Ur is going to give you Barkskin back quicker for a little bit extra damage. It's going to give you Frenzied Regen back quicker. Some of your AoEs, your kicks, you want to make sure you're kicking Scribes in this pull. Again, I'm going to try to filter in clips, whatever things aren't corrupted. But this has been an ongoing 24-hour trying to edit this video. So again, apologies for this. So right after that, you are actually going to go to Hakar. Now, the reason we're going to Hakar's side first is simply because if you fuck up the woe skip, if you go to Ardenweld first, then you fuck up the woe skip and Mechagon, your key's probably burnt because you're going to have to pull extra percent. You're going to have to use potions. You're going to have to use CDs where you normally don't, and it's going to kind of throw off the rhythm of the key. So going to Hakar first, it's easier to get to the boss. It takes less pulls, so you can get Lust on cooldown quicker for Tyrannical weeks, which means you can still keep up with the Lust timers. It also gets the hardest boss out of the way first. I think Hakar is probably the hardest boss in here. I do think all of the bosses in here are difficult in their own way, but I think Hakar people have the most trouble with because they don't fully understand exactly how the boss works. Of course, the faster you push him, especially if you Lust on pull, the faster you push him, the more ads that spawn, and if you don't control your ads, it's all about ad management, you're going to wipe pretty quickly. So going to Hakar first basically gives you quicker Lust. It gives you less chance to fuck up your routing when it comes to percentages. And it also kind of tackles the hardest boss. So those are the three reasons we do this first. So we're going to grab on the first pull, on the second pull. This is when you're going to use Incarnation goes here. This also is on Fortified weeks, we Lust this pull. You can also, if you're very nutty, you can bring in this Enraged Spirit. There's no problem with that. Typically, when you finish off the first pull, the Rage Mob should be near the top of the stairs. Pretty easy to bring him in. But again, that's only if your group is super cracked. After that, we're going to go into this wing here. You can chain this this wing however you want. Typically, this patrol walks in, so I normally just do this group together. You're going to kill and then you can do this next pull if this Death Speaker is still alive. So you can kind of trade it off however you like. Of course, when the Hexer or the Priest dies, then of course you can chain it into the next pull if you'd like. Again, this all depends on your cooldowns. It depends on group composition. And then we're going to finish off the last pull here. Now, I've seen some groups use the urn on this pack. I've seen them double the, like pull all of these, group 4 and group 5 together and then stun. I've seen groups pull this pack back to right here, and then you stun with or not urn. Jeez, there's so many ers. This is the strat that my group does. We like to just pull back, stun it, and get some big damage on the priest. And then of course you'll pull Hakar with Once you successfully get through this, you're just heading right back out, and you're going to continue just looping around the dungeon. It's a very hold W route. You just kind of keep moving forward throughout the key as it goes. The only time you won't be doing that is when you woe skip in Mechagon. So you'll pull the Rage Spirit next, followed by that. Depending on your comfort level and what CDs, you typically will have Incarnation here again. So you can get you can do this massive pull here. DPS will love you for it. You just want to be careful of the Disease Dispel that comes out from these raptors. And outside of that, not much to it. After that, we're heading into Mechagon. I've seen some groups skip the drill. Specifically in my route, we do not skip the drill. I've seen too many times where people fuck this up. Again, if you're comfortable, you can drop this and pull in a couple extra mobs in Arden World. You can feel free to flex around with this route, but I'm just going over what my group does. We haven't practiced skipping the drill yet. How that would work is you actually, depending on which side of the drill is on, you want to just make sure you go around it into this area, and you want to somehow CC these volatile memories to keep them out of your group while you handle the dog and this first headless client. And then once these are cleared, these little guys, these little guys right here, these volatile memories, once they're cleared, you have all of the space to work out with, and then you can pull in the additional headless clients. Now, the problem with doing this route is if someone accidentally steps out while this the dental drill is like moving back and forth, you pull it, you'll probably wipe. Depending on where you wipe in the pull, you'll fuck up your woe skip, which means you can't skip the rest of the swing, which just in higher keys it'll pretty much lead to a depleted key. So you want to, that's why we pull the drill. It's not really because it's effective. It's not at all. If you can skip it, do it. I highly recommend it, but I play with idiots. So we end up just doing this. So right after we do the drill, we're doing this pull here, and we're killing woe. Now, the one tip, you'll see it on screen here. I'll show it. But what we're doing in this pull is we're pulling in the 4RF, the dog. We're pulling him in by himself with the client, and we're starting to DPS them down to get a head start, because once we drag woe in, woe's going to die very quick, and then the relics, and then once woe actually spawns, it's going to get cleaved down pretty quickly. So that's why we're splitting this up. Of course, if your group is very controlled with their AoE and their ability to focus down specific targets, pull it all in, focus down woe, make sure it dies. Once woe spawns, you want to make sure you set focus to it to make sure you're kicking it. Just make sure you kick it on burst and you should be set. Once we finish that off and we get woe, we're going to run into this room. There's going to be a little device thing here, which an engineer can click, activate, and what it's going to do is it's going to disable all of the slimes from running down these sewer drains or sewer pipes or whatever. And that'll make it very, very easy for the group to continue just zugging right past. You're concealed, so you're invis, so you actually avoid all of this. So you just do a little loop-de-loop, and you're in the boss room, which allows you to skip all of Mechagon. You want roughly, worst case scenario, you need like 15 to 18 seconds of woe buff to make it through this. If you don't have that much time, you might have to just end up pulling these slimes, or you can have some kind of like death res where you're able to get past, have the healer like chill up top, pop an invis pot or something, and then mass res everyone. Best case scenario, you kill woe and the rest of the pack dies, and you have like 30 to 45 seconds, because that gives you enough time to like take your time, make sure you're dodging the the barrage of like the sludge water that's like pushing people off. You just want to make sure you get through it properly. Next pull, of course, we're going to handle the mana storms with the relic again, and then right after that we're heading straight out. And then of course you can continue just pulling along. Now feel free to pull these Enraged Spirits earlier if they happen to be in a good spot for your group. It's not going to fuck percentages anywhere, unlike, you know, in past words like Prideful, where like pulling extra percent at specific points could actually fuck your group. This time, just pull whatever's available, or you wait until you have cooldowns for this guy. So if you finish off this pull way back on pull 9, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, we have, you know, XYZ cooldown, let's go handle this guy before we head into Mechagon. Also a valid strategy. Pull 14 is rough. You want to make sure you're kicking scribes. They're kind of far away from urn, so you do have to try to get them closer. You can do this with knockbacks, you can do this with kicks, but they pretty much need to be between this stair going into Ardenweld and the urn, and they should get stunned. Stack everything up, kill and then head into Ardenweld. I've seen some groups kill Woe here to help get into Ardenweld faster. Do whatever your group feels like they need to do. We kill because the way that our group works with CDs is that they can use big CDs here and then have it up pretty quickly going into Ardenweld, which will ultimately just lead into like faster killing of the packs in Ardenweld. So again, it's Woe or there, which is what I like about the season effects. Some of these decisions are quite meaningful, and you can do either or and get away with it. Unfortunately, Vi sucks. I wish Vi was better. All right, so Ardenweld routing. This is probably the question I get asked the most regarding this dungeon. Either this and a Muzala, tanking Muzala, which I need. That's the other boss cut I was working on, but again, files were just fucking corrupted and it was driving me nuts this weekend. So, Ardenweld routing. There's a few general rules you want to keep in mind. Blade Beaks, you should never go Blade Beak pull to Blade Beak pull. If you're gonna pull Blade Beaks, you want to pull in between that doesn't have Blade Beaks in it, because they apply a really nasty debuff. If we click on this, it's called Beak Slice. So it inflicts physical damage, of course, but then it makes the next subsequent Beak Slice from any of the birds hit you for 10% increased damage for 30 seconds. Oftentimes you'll see this skyrocket into the double digits, whether it's like 10 stacks, 15 stacks. The highest I've seen in a high key is like 22 stacks, and that is I am rolling large defensives, asking for externals. And the craziest part about this is it has a 20-yard range. This isn't a melee ability. This is a straight up ranged ability. You need, if you're kiting this, you better be in a different wing of this dungeon. So that is probably the biggest rule in here. Also, you want to keep in mind that the rune stags cause a lot of group damage. So you never want to pull 2 Elderhorn rune stags at the same time. And then the last kind of big tip is you want to avoid as many matriarchs as possible unless your group is comfortable with them. I typically route 1 in, but the rest I leave out. And then also, just a side note, these Blade Beak hatchlings, they do this frightened cries. This will alert. It doesn't have a tooltip, but it just alerts like every Blade Beak within like 100 yards. So if you pull this and the cast gets off, this matriarch's coming in, this matriarch's coming in. If this one down here in this pull gets it off, this matriarch's coming in. So don't let them get off. I don't think this one actually comes in. I think it's too far down, but nonetheless, if you do pull a hatchling, do not let it cast. Pull it in, stun it, have an interrupt rotation. Interrupt meaning like hard CC rotation. So, getting back to the route, you can pull pretty aggressive in here. Most of the damage your group's going to be taking, or you're going to be taking as a tank, is going to be physical damage. Physical damage is very easy to mitigate. Things like stagger, things like shield block, things like dodge, things just like armor. Very, very efficient. So what I'll typically do is in the very first pull, I'm going to pull both of these Shimmer Moth packs, the little Spriggan dudes on the right hand side, and then of course the rune stags. The priority for single target in this pull is going to be specifically the Elderhorn. It has higher health than everything else. 2, it's the only thing in here that's doing group damage. It spawns these the Anima Starstorm, which are those swirls that you see on the ground. If you stand in it, you'll take arcane damage. On raging weeks or bolstering weeks, if you get clipped by one, your DPS are dead. Or meaning like if your DPS get clipped by them. If you get clipped by them, it's kind of whatever. You want to avoid them as a tank because, again, magical damage, it's harder to mitigate, especially for specific tanks like Brewmaster or Guardian Druid in this case. So what I'm basically doing in here is I'm trying to pair up. If I'm going to pull Blade Beaks again, I'm going to split it. So the next pull, we're keeping it pretty light. We're typically using bigger CDs here, so the next pull is going to be a little bit lighter. This gives time for CDR. It gives me time typically for Incarnation to come back up. It's 7 targets, so this is going to be very efficient for any type of caster, any type of cleave class. Most classes want anywhere from 4 or more targets. Of course, there are some classes that are capped at either 5 or 8 targets still with a lot of their abilities. So 7 targets falls right in that nice little area. It's nothing too scary. There's 1 priority target. Really nice pull. The next pull that we do then is going to be very aggressive. It's going to basically be all 5 blade beaks on the right hand side. We're not pulling the matriarch and we're not pulling the hatchlings. Those are just bad mobs to pull in. The matriarch will destroy a tank and the hatchlings provoke the matriarch, so you don't want to do any of that. There is also a patrol in here. I'm going to try to show the clip in this video, but you want to make sure you're paying attention to where the routing is, because they kind of do this like weird little like figure 8, or I don't know. You want to basically get a very large blade beak pull and kind of be very efficient with pulling those. So we're getting 8 blade beaks, and then we're going to pull all of these onto Urn with the bark binders. Now, of course, if your group is feeling very spicy, you can actually tag in these rune stags as well. Just the only thing is as a tank, you want to make sure that your group is aware how much you're pulling, because this will help them know when they should activate the lantern. Because if you're tagging in this rune stag, it's coming in later. You want to make sure everything is stacked before you stun. If things are spread, you're not getting efficient cleave, you're not getting efficient AoE damage. Especially if you're a bear spamming thrash, you want everything to be a little bit tighter. So it's pretty important. Also, if you do pull the rune stags on this pull, your DPS also need to be careful of the anima storm that's coming down on the ground. If they get hit by this, especially if it enrages, they're going to take a big hit of damage. So I like to leave the rune stag pull for later, so I'm going to take it out of this pull. So this is what we do onto Urn. Now, of course, you feel free to adapt this to however your cooldowns are. With Incarnation, though, I can pull pretty big and get away with it. After this, there were blade beaks in this pull, so I want a pull that doesn't pull blade beaks. So what you can do is I typically pull these. It's 5 targets. It's efficient for cleave. It gives cooldown reset on icy veins. It's going to give, like, it's pretty much target cap for everything in the game, and everything has about the similar health. So there's no priority target, which is kind of a downside, but you can just cleave it all down. When this pull starts to die, you can tag in this hatchling, which will pull the blade beak and the moth, and it'll also pull the relics. So you kill you can get the blade beak in. The blade beak hatchling, though, you want to be very, very careful to make sure you are stunning it. So when it does its little frightened cries, make sure you're stunning it. Now the thing is, though, I end up pulling these blade beaks anyways. Actually, sorry, this won't pull the blade beak, it'll pull the shimmer moth, though, if you tag the hatchling by itself. I'm then going to pull in the hatchlings to it eventually. So we're going to do this. That is weird. So that's what our pull is going to look like. I kind of chain these two together depending on what's dying. So once the hatchling dies, then that's when I pull in the blade beaks. And once is active, once the relic has been killed and the Automa is active, that's when I'm going to pull in the blade beaks and stuff. And then after that, we're going to end one of our last pulls in here with these 8 targets. You have a priority target. 8 target is cap for most classes, and you're going to pull this down to the bottom of the hill. We're then going to handle Dealer Zyxa, and then at the very, very end, once we kill Dealer Zyxa, we're going to fly back up to the start of the instance. Your group, we're going to change this to like a nice bright red. Your group can run down. Oops, we don't want that. Your group is going to run down to the red, kind of back where the urn was, and the tank is going to come over here, and you're going to run through this pack and pull it over to the urn. And when you do this, you're going to basically aggro all of the blade beaks. You're going to grab, this is the point where you could pick if you'd like. We like to pick Woe here though, because we want to get back to Muzala as quick as possible. And then you're going to pull in the rune stags. And this is going to give you a route that's a little bit over 100%, but not quite 101, which means it's like right in that perfect kind of line. It's very hard to get perfect 100% route in dungeons like this, but it is doable with other routes. But again, this is the route that we use, and we've had very good success with it. In the 22 that I was going to show you guys, we ended the queue with 6 minutes left, but like 10 deaths or something like that, or 8 deaths. It's a very easy key if you're consistent with your route. So we pull this onto X, and then when you need to start kiting because blade beak damage is getting too high, or the rune stags are, things are getting enraged, you can just start running right up towards the hill. By this point, you should have the woe buff, so you're able to just fucking get out of there. Things can die to dots, and then you're going to head back to Muzala. So that is the kind of general routing. And then, of course, the very, very last pull you're going to do is going to be Big Muzi himself. All right, so I do want to just kind of end with these final thoughts just in case you skipped or you are deaf and you missed a part of the video. The reason I like this route in particular is because if you do mess up the woe skip, you can adapt your route. So when you get to Arden being the last wing, you can be like, okay, we had to pull most of Mechagon, so we can drop both Blade Beak sides and be done with it. Now, there are tons of routes for this place out there. And if you're a tank and a pug, I recommend doing what is going to be most simple for the rest of your group. If you're a pug tank, I recommend trying to be as direct as possible with your route. I don't recommend trying to overcomplicate like woe skips. Also, so like I've seen a lot of groups do this where they woe skip into Arden. I think that's great, but if you're gonna do that, you need to be careful, because if you also plan on trying to do the Mechagon skip because you think it's good, which it is, it's a great skip. I'm so glad they put a woe relic there. Mechagon sucked. If it goes to shit here, you are having to pull so much extra percent because there's nothing you can feasibly skip if you've already pulled Arden Weld. So I've seen groups skip to Hakar. The problem with that is that the hardest pull in the dungeon is this pack here, which you have to pull anyways if you skip to Hakar, and you don't have any room to kite as a tank. So you kind of have to be very, very efficient with cooldowns. I just think it takes a little bit more coordination. So as a pug tank, I don't recommend skipping to either wing. I recommend just pulling and working towards whichever wing you feel comfortable with. If you plan on doing the woe skip, I recommend going to Hakar first. If you don't plan on doing the woe skip, I recommend going to Ardenweld first. Of course, that means your pulls would be totally different. You would have to pull a lot less than Ardenweld, but that's for you guys to make up. So this is the route. I'm going to have it in the description below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something from it. I apologize for the corrupted videos. I'm trying to figure all that shit out. So hopefully I can salvage what I can. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Hope you guys learned something. Hope you're having a great day, and I will catch you all in the next one. Take care.